turn our attention to the tennis. Colm Boohig is with us. Colm, are you bleary-eyed from having got to bed at what, 1:30 Irish time or 12:30 Irish time last night?
I'm bleary-eyed courtesy of the unsociable scheduling at this year's Roland Garros, which saw Rafael Nadal's quarter-final clash with Yannick Sinner start at 10:45 p.m. French time last night. So got to bed this morning, I suppose, technically.
And why are they doing that? Sorry.
So what happened was they put a roof on Philippe Chatrier earlier this year. So they're utilising that. They're showing off their roof, but no other court has a roof. So Ons Jabeur was playing Danielle Collins in their last 16 match on the women's side. The day before last, they were playing on Suzanne Lenglen, which is the second court, but there's no roof there. And obviously this is being played in autumn, so it's raining a lot, it's windy, it's cold. That match got deferred to the next day. But for whatever reason, they decided to put Jabeur Collins on Chatrier to start the order of play yesterday. So there were 5 matches on Chatrier yesterday. And what they didn't account for was the middle match between Diego Schwartzman and Daniel Thiem to be a 5-hour epic, which meant that Nadal Sinner started so late last night. But there was always a chance that this was going to happen because if you were studying Schwartzman and Thiem lately, that was almost certainly going to go the distance, and so it occurred.
What kind of a tournament has it been, before we get into any of the details of those actual matches? What kind of tournament has it been so far? It's obviously a bizarre time of the year for the French Open to be happening. These tiny little smattering of a crowd. What's it been like to watch?
It's odd. It's kind of post-apocalyptic because unlike the US Open, there are fans allowed at this French Open, but there's only 1,000 a day. So you're only getting a smattering of 100 or so, depending on the match, at each match. So you are hearing that smattering of applause rather than silence. And weirdly enough, for the US Open, there was kind of a communal element and aspect of everybody watching it from afar. But it's almost like this French Open feels like an exclusive VIP event that you're not invited to because there are people there and you're not one of them. And obviously with the conditions as well, so you have players wearing leggings, some players are wearing zip-up tops playing. It looks like if you would go down to your local tennis court in Ireland and saw someone play during the winter, they're wearing that kind of a gear. And obviously you don't associate that with Grand Slams, you associate Grand Slams with fine weather. So it is obviously very strange, and I suppose it's very 2020, it's very on point.
Well, they not just wear shorts and get on with it, no?
Well, some of them are. I mean, Rafa Nadal was wearing his usual gear, and he played, I think it was 12 degrees last night when his match with Sinner started. But you had, say, Andy Murray in the first round, who's from Hardy, Scotland, was wearing leggings all the way up. Looked like it was basically what you'd wear in the warm-up before you even take to the court to play your match. But that's what players are wearing. I think Victoria Azarenka, who got to the US Open final a few weeks ago, she never took off her zip-up top when she was playing. That's how cold some of these players are. They're just not used to these type of conditions. And I guess that's why you're seeing so many seeds fall away so early. 8 of the top 10 women's seeds are gone already.
When do we see Nadal versus Djokovic?
Oh, you're going to see it in the final. You're going to see it in the final because Nadal beat Sinner last night. Sinner is this fantastic young talent, 19 years of age, who beat Alexander Zverev in the previous round. He's an excellent player, but Nadal dispatched him in straight sets. And Djokovic is actually playing Pablo Carreño Busta in today's quarterfinal. And that's the match, of course, that happened at the US Open where Djokovic accidentally hit the lineswoman Laura Clark and got disqualified from the tournament. So I expect Djokovic to win that. Then he'll probably play Stefanos Tsitsipas in the semi-final, who he should beat. Meanwhile, Nadal will play Diego Schwartzman in the other semi-final. Schwartzman actually beat Nadal at the Italian Open, the warm-up event for this tournament on clay. But that's the best of 3 sets. I was saying before, most of these players in the top 50 have the ability to beat the likes of Nadal and Djokovic in a best of 3 sets. But when it comes to the best of 5, they just can't stick with them for that long. So I do expect Nadal to beat Schwartzman, and then I expect the Titanic final to occur between Djokovic and Nadal, which will be brilliant because you have Nadal, who, if he wins, will win his 13th French Open. But more importantly, he'll win his 20th overall, which will equal Roger Federer's Grand Slam total. And if Novak Djokovic wins, that puts him on to 18 Grand Slams. He's the youngest out of those big 3. And also that will well and truly avenge what happened at the US Open for Djokovic. Bear in mind as well, for Djokovic, he is unbeaten this year. If you discount that disqualification, he won the Italian Open in the warm-up heading into this tournament. He actually beat Schwartzman in that final after Schwartzman had beaten Nadal. So it's all worth it for the seeds dropping and so many upsets occurring on both sides of the draw at this French Open. It'll all be worth it for Djokovic against Nadal in the decider.
That's slated for Sunday afternoon, or is it Sunday evening time? What's the...
They start Sunday afternoon, so similar to what you would start Wimbledon final with, really. So you can look at that on Sunday afternoon, and if you have channels, it's ITV4 or Eurosport. And obviously, they're only an hour ahead, so it's much easier to watch than the US Open.
And the women, you said 8 of the top 10 women's seeds are already gone. Who's left standing, and what type of tournament is that turning into at this stage?
Well, there's basically no favourites. So you have 2 seeds left in Sofia Kenin, who won this year's Australian Open. And then you have Petra Kvitova, who's a 2-time Wimbledon champion. But I think the furthest she's ever gotten in the French is the semi-final, and that was about 8 years ago. It's been the wild cards on the women's side. You have Nadia Podoroska, who's ranked 131 in the world. Her win yesterday against Elina Svitolina, who was the top seed left, seeded 3 at this tournament, 5 in the world. Podoroska beat Svitolina in straight sets yesterday, which means that she is the first ever qualifier to reach the women's semi-finals at the French Open. And to put it into context of Podoroska's achievement and how mad the women's side of this draw has been, Podoroska had never won a Grand Slam match before, never played at the French Open, never even won consecutive WTA matches before, never played a top 20 player, and yet here she is into the last 4. I think her career earnings up until this tournament was about 300,000, and from this tournament alone, regardless of what happens now, she'll have won 425,000. That's how huge these Grand Slams are to these players. And Podoroska, she's only 23. She's from Rosario in Argentina. She has Ukrainian ancestry, hence the name. So it's not like she's a journey woman who's been around for a long time, but she's 23, which isn't that young in tennis either, so she has been around. Her only other Grand Slam appearance at all was the first round of the 2016 US Open. That's how phenomenal this achievement is. But she's not the only one. You have Iga Świątek, a 19-year-old from Poland who's unseeded. She demolished Simona Halep, who's the top seed at this tournament and a 2018 winner of French Open. She demolished her in straight sets. And last night she beat Martina Trevisan, who was another qualifier, who got through all the way through quarterfinals, again, having never played at the French Open, never won a Grand Slam match. She has been on the tour for a long time, for 10 years, and she has a great backstory in that her redemption is incredible. She suffered from anorexia for 4 years, and she was in and out of the game. So to come back from that, I think her father was ill and she was injured herself. And to have this run all the way to the last stage of the tournament, it's life-changing for the likes of Trevisan, Świątek and Podoroska, because the money is so huge for these players who don't make the big money at all compared to the elite level players of the game. Like for tennis, for a lot of players, it's a really grueling sport that's not very well paid. So this French Open, as I was saying already, it's very on point for 2020. There's mad stuff happening all around. Yeah, mad stuff happening all around. Let's talk a little bit about the money side of things and then talk about some of the negatives. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on the remaining side. Our players left in the draw, and both the men's and the women's. We'll talk about them again throughout the rest of the week. But allegations of match fixing have centred on a doubles match. The Tennis Integrity Unit is investigating this. Massive amounts of money, or hundreds of thousands of euro, for a women's doubles at the French Open were bet specifically on the break of serve in the 5th game of the 2nd set. There were a number of errors in that game from the server. So what is the actual procedure here that happens, Colm, without, prejudicing any case that might be about to happen? Yeah, I'm not going to say too much about the prejudice side of things, but it gets outsourced to the prosecutor's office, so the actual police get involved. The Tennis Integrity Unit are behind it, and they'll investigate it. This, unfortunately, isn't that uncommon. I think there was 20 cases last year where the player was found guilty of match fixing. See, the problem is that, as I was saying, for the vast majority of tennis players, it's a very low-paying job, and these things happen. Now, we don't know if, I think it's Yana Siskova was the server. We don't know if she's guilty. We don't know what's going to happen, but there will be an intense procedure and investigation occurring from this. I think the official line they're taking is that it's fraud in an organised group and it's active and passive corruption. So we covered the story on otbsports.com yesterday. So it's up there. You can see the story and you can see the video. The video has been posted of that service game. and it's for anybody to make their minds up. Sissokova lost her serve to Love. There was a few double faults, a few shots that she just didn't hit at all. So you can make your mind up, but it's not that uncommon.
Yeah,
it really isn't.
Okay, well, stuff also happens. Like players do hit double faults. We've seen the best players in the world.
Exactly.
So the other thing, Zverev has apparently had a fever. Didn't think to tell anybody about it. You know, these selfish tennis players not doing their own reps very good.
It was just, what are you doing? Like, that's what I was thinking when I was watching this at the weekend. So Zverev lost to Yannick Sinner, who I've already discussed, the 19-year-old from Italy, in 4 sets. And then Zverev shows up at the post-match press conference, but it's all on Zoom, so he's the only person in the room, and he wore a mask, which you don't have to do because there's nobody else in the room, so it's very unusual. And then he proceeded to just nonchalantly say, yeah, I'm completely sick. As you can hear, I can't really breathe that well. To be honest, I shouldn't have played. I had a fever the other night, and it turned out he had a temperature of 38 degrees. But his last coronavirus test was 5 days before that. Every test he took, the results came back negative. But he didn't tell anybody about this heading into the Sinner match. And he said, well, I wasn't feeling great, but I had hoped to have beaten Sinner in straight sets and got away with it, basically. It's incredible. So, but unlike the US Open, where players' temperatures were checked every day, it's every few days at the French Open. They're not as stringent. But it's still on Zverev's responsibility, his personal responsibility, or at least his team, to say, listen, I don't feel great. But like, as you say, there's a selfish aspect to it, and tennis is a selfish game. It's a selfish sport. It's every person for themselves. And Zverev thought, I can't withdraw. I mean, I had that heartbreaking US Open final defeat where I was 2 points from victory. I need to redeem myself at this French Open. I might have a chance to at least make the semi-finals or the final. So he didn't tell anybody about this. And obviously the whole tennis world and beyond castigated from potentially just how casual and nonchalant he said this in the press conference, like, I didn't feel that great. Now, he subsequently got a coronavirus test and the results have come back negative, which he posted on his Instagram page to his 1.1 million followers on his stories, kind of to say, I told you so, there was nothing to worry about. It turns out I just kind of had the flu. But it's really not great, because imagine if he had tested positive.
Well, that's the thing.
Yannick Sinner wouldn't have been able to play against Rafa Nadal, and it would have opened up a whole... like who knows what would have happened to the tournament if a player of such prominence who was in touch with so many other players tested positive.
Well, look,
luckily he didn't.
It's a theme right across the sports world, from Dungarvan to Aberdeen to all sorts of places, to Sale. We're unfortunately read to the papers, and there's the bang of COVID off a lot of stories. Last one, Andy Murray obviously came in for criticism from Mats Wilander recently enough for taking a spot in tournaments that could be going to wild cards. He said it was his own great regret at the end of his career that he had done something similar. Murray didn't exactly disprove him in the tournament, did he?
No, he was really, really poor against Stan Wawrinka, and that was actually Murray's first French Open match since the 2017 semi-final against Wawrinka, which was an all-time classic that went to 5 sets that Wawrinka prevailed in. And Murray has cited that match as the match where his hip basically gave up on him, and he had the struggles the following year. So he's come back. So in many ways, it's a great redemption story that he's even playing at the French Open. But he was very, very lacklustre. I watched that entire match, and Wawrinka just eased by him. It was no problem to him at all. I completely disagree with Wilander saying that he's taking up the spot. I think that's up to Murray to play. A good comparison would be Venus Williams, who's a multiple Grand Slam champion. She's 40 years of age. She plays at every Grand Slam. She pretty much regularly gets knocked out in the first round. Nobody complains about it. So I think Murray's more than entitled to play if he wants to. And our good buddy Nick Kyrgios said as much. He defended his good buddy Andy Murray on Twitter from.
Anytime you're on the side of Kyrgios, Colm, you gotta paddle that canoe, yeah.
Yeah, well, he's right. He's right, in my opinion. I think Murray should play as long as he wants to play.
All right, fair enough. Colm, good stuff. Overall, a pretty good tournament despite the post-apocalyptic feel you started with.
Yeah, it's really good because of the Podoroska stories and the Trevisan stories. And I can't wait for Djokovic and Nadal. Now, of course, what will happen is that neither will get to the final, but I don't think that will happen. I think it will be those two, and that's going to be probably the match of the year. Well, hopefully, anyway.
The tennis organisers, the French Open organisers, certainly want it as well. 8:50 this morning, Colm. Good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us here on OTB AM.